Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to my Expert Cayenne guide. As usual with these guides, I will be covering team comps, pub meta units, analysis on bosses' attacks, and then there will be a bunch of gameplay with no commentary at the very end of the video. Let's start off by going over requirements. The stats required for Expert Kai is not that high compared to Volk. The maxed out players will be around 10,000 might, but you can actually beat Expert Kai with about 8,000 to 9,000 might characters. I have even managed to beat Expert Kai with like a team consisting of a 8,500 might Gleo, 8,000 might Nefaria, and a Cleo, so it was a healer comp. We cleared it in about 3 minutes. Nefaria was using a 0 unbinded 6-star bow, so maxed out weapons are not necessary. You can get by with just Chimera Tech on some characters and a 0 unbinded 6-star weapon on some others, but I would still suggest that you get at least a high dragon tier 2, just because it'll be a lot easier for you to get accepted into pub rooms, especially the rooms with higher invested characters. The longer the fight, the harder it's going to be. All the annoying stuff and complications are in the later stages of the fight, so the more damage you have, the smoother your runs will be. Now, one of the most important things you should do before you start hardcore farming Expert Volk is to max out your shadow tree. Do not use your first clear rewards to craft the 6-star weapons. Instead, use those materials to upgrade your shadow tree. When it's maxed out, all your shadow characters will get 16% increased strength and HP. It's a way better investment. Now moving on, let's get into the pub meta. The best thing about Cayenne is the wide variety of viable units. You can clear this with almost anybody, like no joke, but I would be lying if I said certain characters aren't favored in pubs. The characters that pubs really want are Nefaria, Cleo, and Patia. Those three are widely accepted, so if you want a good character to start farming Cayenne with, then I would recommend those three. Nefaria and Cleo are wanted just because they are able to dispel, which is very important in this fight. Patia is used in 4 DPS comps, which consists of 1 or 2 Patias with a Nefaria and other DPS characters. All 4 DPS run Odd Sparrows, which is enabled with Patia skill 1 buff, and that print will provide the heals for this team. With 2 Patias, this comp becomes extremely failsafe. The team will get constant defense buffs, strength buffs, and health regen. It's a very good team comp for players across all skill levels. As for the other team comps, honestly, put one of the 2 Dispellers being Nefaria or Cleo on a team with a Poison Enabler being Delphi or Nefaria, and you can fill the rest of the slots with whoever you want from this list. You can do Nefaria 3 Gleos, Nefaria, Gleo, Ieyasu, and Delphi, Nefaria, Gleo 2 Lathnas. You can do Cleo, Nefaria, Gleo, Lathna, or Cleo, Nefaria, Gleo, Ieyasu, Patia, Nefaria, Curran, Delphi. The list goes on and on, it's endless. Most of these combinations can easily clear in sub 2 minutes. I would just make sure that you run Ieyasu and Nefaria together, because Nefaria's skill hits co-ability really helps Iyasu's opener. Also, running Delphi and Lathna together is a good idea as well, because the affliction bug between the 2 characters is still there. Now I want to take a second to talk about Heinwald. Heinwald is viable, but he's very unpopular because Cleo's Dispel is so important to have. He's pretty much overshadowed by Cleo, but as long as there's Nefaria on the team, Heinwald should be fine. As for Worm Prince, if you are part of a double Patia team, then running Veil and Crown with Odd Sparrows is recommended. If you are on a Poison team, then it's recommended to use Fires of Hate on the DPS characters. Fires of Hate is a Valentine's limited print, so if you do not have that, then you can use Plaguebringer instead. And a quick disclaimer for anybody watching this video, all of this stuff could change in a matter of a couple weeks, so keep that in mind, alright? Okay, now with that taken care of, let us move on to the attack analysis segment. I will be using my second clear ever gameplay for this part because the run was extremely slow, so that'll allow you guys to see all of Kai's attacks, alright? The first move that Kai does is this jumping slam purple attack. He targets the farthest player, which would be player number 3. As a blade or lance, all you have to do is buffer your 4-strike before the match starts and you can 4-strike out. Every other character can dodge it with a couple of rolls. He then will prepare to start spinning for about 4 seconds or so. This is iframeable, but most attacks cannot iframe the entire attack except for a few skills such as Ieyasu and Lathna's skill 1. By the way, Kai has a yellow ring around him, and players inside the ring will deal more damage to Kai, but will also receive more damage from Kai. With that said, whenever you are playing ranged, make sure you cast your skills from inside the ring and not from the outside. After the spin, he's going to stand idle for a few seconds, and the team should take this opportunity to group up. Unbreakable Satellites is when he summons 4 glowing yellow balls, and these balls will rotate around him. If you touch them, then you'll take a little bit of damage, but more importantly, the balls will inflict blind. Fight for Survival is the reason why I recommend to group up earlier. This move puts 2 golden rings around 2 players, and the optimal strat is to overlap the 2 rings so that the whole team becomes stuck inside of the rings. Touching the rings will deal some damage to you, and you want to avoid taking damage so that you do not lose your strength buff from these Fires of Hate Wyrmprint. Now sometimes desyncs will mess up the positioning of these rings and will sometimes make the players get stuck in between them, which ultimately will cause them to die. While you are stuck inside of the ring, he's going to do every man for themselves, which places a red marker or a stack on a single player. You have to group up on this red marker in order to split the damage across everybody. If your team has very high DPS, then you can skip this part, and it's possible to even skip the 2 golden ring attack. If you aren't able to skip it, then Kai will do 2 of these cone attacks where he winds up his mace, jumps up, and slams onto the ground. When you defeat his first phase, that's going to cause him to transform and deal AoE damage. If you are running a 4 DPS comp that does not include Patia or any source of healing, then what you want to do is dragon tank the blast. You are able to survive without dragon tanking, but you should dragon tank it so that you can maintain your strength buff from the Fires of Hate Wyrmprint. Whenever he does his attack where a red ring forms around him, that means he's going to summon his adamantine shield. This shield blocks all sources of damage and removes all afflictions, and attacking the shield will cause your characters to receive little doses of damage per attack. The best way to remove it is by dispelling it with either Nefaria or Gleo, as this shield is considered as a buff. You can actually use your Force Strikes as Nefaria or Gleo a little bit early so that it immediately dispels the shield as soon as it comes up, but that requires some practice to get the timing down. If you are inexperienced with Expert Kai, then I would recommend waiting for the shield to pop up first so that you don't whiff your dispels. If you are playing characters other than Nefaria and Gleo, it's actually best to not attack while the shield is up and just wait for it to get dispelled in order to maintain the strength buff from Fires of Hate. This swipe attack right here should be familiar if you ever played Volk. He does a left arm swipe first and then followed by a right arm swipe. The right arm swipe is 2 times faster than the left one. You might also see a third swipe that hits behind Kai if you can't skip it by dealing enough DPS. Now keep in mind that Kai's attack patterns will differ depending on the amount of damage that he has taken. These swipes can be skipped if you deal enough DPS, so if you ever see the swipe come out during this part of the phase, chances are you'll probably see him perform the swipe attack quite frequently for the rest of the match. When he walks to the center here, he'll do 1 to 2 things depending on how much damage he has taken. If your team doesn't manage to deal very high DPS early on, then he'll do a move called Crushing Cataclysm. This is where he grabs the player that is farthest away and slams them onto the ground, which will disable the player until the rest of the team destroys the weak point. If the weak point isn't taken care of in time, then the purple circular area below the weak point will fill up and explode, dealing enough damage to one-shot KO anyone inside the area. Supreme Spheres number 1 is when he summons 3 different colored spheres around him. The spheres will begin to gravitate towards Kai a few seconds after they spawn. These spheres will grant Kai an adamantine shield when he comes in contact with them. In addition to that, depending on which color sphere touches Kai, it will also apply a buff. The red sphere applies a 35% strength buff, blue grants 35 defense, and white grants health regen. Your job here obviously is to destroy the spheres before they come in contact with Kai. It's also in your best interest to destroy the spheres because they do grant Dragon Meter. Now if you aren't able to destroy all of them in time, then what you can do is destroy 1 of the 3 spheres and then just bait the dash towards the same direction. That will give you some time to destroy the rest of the spheres. After he dashes, he might do his double swipe attack, then this is followed by Unbreakable Satellites. He'll then walk to the center and do Universal Annihilation. When he's in the center, this move covers the entire map. You can do 1 of 2 things. You can either dragon tank it or run outside the ring and just tank it in human form. Make sure to avoid coming in contact with the rotating glowing balls because remember, they do afflict blind. He then will summon more shields. Again, Nefaria or Gleo should dispel it. This is followed by a mini annihilation attack. This one's sort of similar to it, except that it only covers the area inside the yellow ring. You can either dragon tank it or run outside of the yellow ring to dodge it entirely. The farthest player will then get grabbed and thrown across the map into the wall. The throw doesn't deal much damage, but the character is unable to move until they recover from the landing. Summon Spheres number 2 is up next, and this is where the fight gets a bit annoying. This time he summons 6 spheres instead of 3. Your job of course is to break as many spheres as possible, but the best way to handle this part is to actually destroy a couple orbs that are right next to each other and then bait his dash towards the same direction. His dashes, by the way, targets the closest player. Now, unlike the first Summon Spheres phase, he dashes 3 times instead of 1 here, so you want to make sure that there's always somebody baiting Kai away from the rest of the spheres while the rest of the team break the spheres. Do not let Kai touch any of the spheres. After this whole phase, he will walk to the center and do unbreakable satellites, but this time he spawns a lot more glowing balls. There's only 2 open spots where you can walk through safely, so keep an eye out on those 2 open spots because he's going to do Universal Annihilation again, which is the AoE attack that covers the entire map. Again, you can either dragon tank it or run outside the ring and tank it in human form. And that's pretty much it for the fight. I never got past this point, so I can't tell you the rest of his attacks, but he should definitely be dead around this time. Overall, the fight is pretty easy. Volk was already pretty easy, but Kai is like 3 times easier. This fight is so much easier to figure out, and the clear times is so much faster. Inexperienced players should be able to take down Kai in around 4 minutes or so. Once you get the hang of things, then you can eventually beat Kai in between 1 to 2 minutes. It's honestly that easy to farm. I have been farming expert like crazy in pubs and with pre-made teams to the point where I made 5 max out 6 stars in just 4 days. I know there's some players out there that made all 8 within 3 days, which isn't surprising to be honest. It's just such an easy fight. Anyways, I have some clear gameplay using a bunch of different characters for those that are interested to watch. I'm gonna be heading out now, so thank you guys so much for watching. Hope this video was helpful. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment them down below. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
私に近寄ったらダメ。
我らはアギト死を滑る剛腕。マイおう夜桜発煙突せいはっ加減は無用です。せいく夜桜発煙突こそ聖堂うぬは邪道よ。おう夜桜発煙突せい玉ちぎりの力
上手に焼けました。
強靭だろう我が肉体は。夜桜発煙突さあ肉が立てるぞ。夜桜発煙突せいマイ火戦場の血夜桜発煙突はっせいシャーせいマイオー夜桜発煙突せいチャーせい玉ちぎりの力をこれぞ忍びの邪道の果ては滅びのみよ。
これにて一件落着ですね。
我らはアギト死を滑る剛腕。
力が満ちる。はいそれエルダーズフェイスエンシェントレイ砕け散りなさい。それエンシェントレイ
水族の調和など邪道。
エルダーズフェイス当たれドラゴン大召喚
目覚めろアギト万無の六体
エンシェントレイいきますよ。
これぞ暴力の実感。
いきますエンシェントレイ当たれエルダーズフェイス
強靭だろう我が肉体は。さあ肉が立てるぞ。
それエンシェントレイ砕け散りなさい。それ当たれエルダーズフェイスそれエンシェントレイ
戻るな邪道どもめが。せいこれぞ忍びの愉快よ運を必ず到達せん。